All right, here we are. All right, good evening, LinkedIn. Dave Wilson, the Ring of Hire Show. Hey, listen, tonight got a great guest from New York in Manhattan, if I remember right. So we have Tazeen Raza. How you doing, Tazeen?
Good, David.
Good. This is going to be a great topic tonight, everybody. Between resumes, interview, we're going to talk about a bunch of things in staffing. So I'll be right back after this video, and you all know it well. Here we go. As soon as I find it, there we go. You know, you just had me thinking here. If all I have to do is off of your LinkedIn profile is add human resources to that word,
Uh-huh.
and then put coach everything there. That'll cover mostly everything that you do.
Yeah.
Everything on there. So every now and then, everybody, I'm scrolling through LinkedIn and I came upon Tazeen's profile, and I connected with her and asked her to be on the show. I can't believe how much what you do, Tazeen. I'm between resume writing, career coaching, interview preparation, onboarding, employee relations. I don't. There's probably executive coach. We got more. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
So I started out in HR. I actually worked at a retail company. And I really enjoyed working in HR. It was probably my best job I ever had. But I wanted to spend time with my daughter, and I wanted to be able to help people to really realize their full potential rather than
Right.
being able to working for a company and not being able to give the feedback that I wanted
How
to
you
those
want to do?
people. So that's why I kind of opened up my own business. My daughter went to pre-K at that point, and I said, this is the best time to get something going. So I
Right.
started to pre-COVID, opened up something. Sorry, there's this incessant
No, they're just building a house, right?
I somewhere above me, I guess.
Right.
This is what happens in Manhattan.
In the
Anytime anything
Manhattan.
can happen.
That's okay.
So I started to kind of build clientele, and it just takes one person to kind of move you forward. Hey, like I talked to this person, like, oh, you should try. So it kind of like was word of mouth at that point. I don't really do any type of advertising
Right.
or anything like that, but word of mouth, referrals, some through LinkedIn. So people started to really come in, and I love to do these kind of podcasts because I feel like
Right.
a lot of people get a lot out of it without me, having to put in a ton of effort, individually with people. So it was really my goal to be able to help people get hired and, understand what's happening on the back end, because sometimes you're like, oh my God, HR is not calling me.
Right.
But you don't really understand what's happening on the back end of it. And people really panic because it's a very tedious process, job searching. People think, I'm going to search for a job tomorrow. I'm going to have an interview next, Friday,
And
I'm
that's
going to get
it.
hired.
I wish it was
It
that
doesn't
easy.
work like that. It's much more tedious. You apply to 100 jobs, you get, 30 interviews, 40 interviews. And of those 40, you dwindle it down to 10, maybe
Right.
jobs that you are qualified for.
What
So
I what I like what you do is, and the subject of like, career coach. And I've done my homework on you. So if anybody looks at your profile, you know what you're talking about. You got the experience, you see it, you can tell. I mean, sometimes that's what I look for to see what type of person, if I would be hiring.
mhm,
But when it comes to the word the career coach, what
mhm.
I like that we talked about before this is you said the key words to me is when you speak with somebody, you really want to see if they're a match.
Yeah, that's very important. And I think when you are looking for a coach and it's their interview with you, but it's also your interview with them. Are you a match? If
Right.
you're a person who needs somebody who's going to be really delicate with your feelings and like really, then you want a coach that's going to be like that.
Like that.
If you want somebody who's going to give you that direct feedback so you can immediately change your tactics and get hired, then that kind of direct hire, the direct coach is for you.
Right.
And I think that's really important to understand that, because a lot of people are like, hey, you know, I worked with somebody, but I didn't really love them. You didn't interview them properly. You need
Right.
to make sure that you're asking those right questions. Hey, is this coach right for me? Oh, I liked this person, but you know, I'm going to try to interview a few other people and see what's out there.
So
And
what are
that's
some of the things that you look for in a person? Like when you look, I'm hiring you to find me a job. We reach out, we talk. What are you trying to, as a coach, career coach, what are you trying to talk to me? I know you do different fields, so that has got to be, you know, like when you said IT and all that kind of stuff, that's just a game changer. They're so different, each person. But what are you trying to tell the candidate? Like, how can you help them?
Well, you know, my first point to them is, where are you in the hiring process? Have you already done your resume and your LinkedIn, and what kind of responses are you getting? When you apply, of 10 jobs that you're applying for, how many responses are you getting? Are you getting an immediate decline? Because that's telling. Then that means there's something wrong with your resume. And you know, oh no, I'm in the hiring process. You know, I've applied to 10 to 20 jobs, and you know, I mostly get a response back, and I got called in for an interview. That tells me, okay, your resume is good. Okay, how many offers have you had? Oh, none.
I know.
That seems like it's a personality issue. You're not
We talk
able
about
to
that.
nail those questions in the interview. So maybe interview coaching is something that you need. And you know, there are people also who have trouble kind of talking through their experience, and you want to use the STAR method, and a lot of people
So
don't.
do you work with them on that, on how to, because I know what you're saying. I do it. I talk all over the place on an interview. I used to, because in my mind, as I'm interviewing, I'm like, David, shut up. David, stop talking, stop talking.
Yeah,
You know, you blabber on sometimes, and you walk out of the
it's
interview. You're
tough.
like, yeah, why did I say that? Was it the right thing to say?
Mhm.
I guess you can really, when you're talking to him, you're getting information from me. I guess you must have to just be like, this is why. You're
Yeah.
going to have to be
No,
honest.
that's 100% the truth. So people will, you know, I'll ask them random questions, and then they'll answer me, and I'll say, stop. Do not say that. No, we're going
Right.
to start again. Now I'm going to ask you the same question. Now tell me this in a different way. I've actually had to stop people and tell them you're making me bored. Stop.
Right.
I'm bored. Like, I do
Right.
not want to listen to this conversation. I want to like go away. And that gives them a pause, because a lot of these IT type of roles, it's so technical,
Right.
and they really, because they're so excited about their technicality of these positions, they want to tell you everything.
You were telling me some of the things they ask in those interviews. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah,
No.
it's not possible for someone to stay interested in that type of thing that long. And you know, in the STAR method, it's situation, task, action, result.
Say that one more time.
Situation, task, action, result.
Okay.
So
Right.
they focus more on the task. They want to tell you the task from A to Z. I
Right.
do not want to hear about the task A to Z. I don't care. I want to hear briefly situation, task. The action and the result is where the meat of your information should be.
Right.
So, you know, then they start to understand, okay, this is what I sound like. I was like, you know, there are people that sound like we have fluctuations in our voice, but a
Right.
lot of people have trouble even just with that. So you're like, this is what you sound like to me. Okay, so then I said, you need to have up and
Like
down in your voice. If you're excited, show me you're excited. Like, why do you sound like this? And they don't realize actually that they're sounding like that, but you know, this is how it's coming across.
Well, can I stop you there for a second? So when you're saying that, we talked earlier about like the generation gap, let's
Mhm.
just say younger generation, millennials. Is there a difference when you're talking to somebody in different age groups too? How how you talk to somebody. Because my point is, I know sometimes with the old myself,
Yeah.
you need, a lot of people say, well, age discrimination, all these other things, but if you don't sound excited, I is that could be one
You have to
thing
sign.
too.
You have to sound excited at every age.
See, okay, see, that's perfect. That's what I
That
mean.
is not an age thing. You got to
All
sound
right,
excited about every age. If you're
all
not
right, that's good.
excited
I like
to
it.
tell me about your job, why
Right,
should I be excited to listen to it?
you're right. You're right.
Bored.
I got you. Yep.
No.
No.
But there is a difference when it comes to millennials versus people that are older, and there is a
Right.
lot of that ageism happening. But one thing I have noticed is that people who are in the millennium age, they are more likely to ask for help and look for those coaches
Right.
versus people who are older first want to try it themselves, see how they go, and then proceed forward and say, hey, this is not working for me. Let me try something. Let me
Right.
find a coach.
And that makes sense.
And there's no harm in asking for help, even if it's somebody you don't want to hire somebody. Ask a friend to help you. Hey, do you mind looking over my resume? Because they'll definitely see something that you won't.
They don't. Yep. I agree. I agree with that to a T, because even like you have an HR side in your background too.
Mhm.
Reaching out to just people and say, hey, I always tell people, send me your resume. Let me look at it.
Mhm.
I am very brutally honest. And I'll tell
You
them,
have to
please
be.
rewrite it. And they're like,
Yeah.
what? I've just spent, and I'm like, because some of the people that come back to you and say, well, I had somebody write it for me, a friend, or
Oh
I'm like,
no.
listen, I know people don't want to pay for a resume writer. I get that. I really do. But at the same time, I always say you can't afford not to, because if you've experienced it like I did, it can really change your process. And you're not lying about your background or fibbing a little bit here and there. It's just what you do as a resume writer.
Mhm.
You're putting it in the correct wording.
Well, there's two types of resume writers, right? There's a kind of writer that you're going to hand your resume in and they're going to say, okay, I'm going to write all of this, rewrite everything for you.
Right.
That actually doesn't help you later on, because when you get into an interview, you don't know what's on your resume. You don't
Right.
remember, because our brains work in such a way that when you're writing it yourself, your brain remembers it.
Right.
So if you're having somebody write it, that's not
I know what
helping
you're
you
saying.
in the
I know what you're
future.
saying. Okay.
So that's not, I don't work this way. But when somebody comes and says, I want you to help me rewrite my resume, I'm asking them, I'm going to tell them these are the words that are missing.
Right.
This is all the stuff I want you to put back in this resume. This is all the stuff that doesn't make sense. I'm going to take all of that stuff out, and anything that's not going to add value.
Right.
And then based on the keyword list that I give you, I want you to go back in and add these keywords, because only you know how they relate to your experience, not me.
That's what I mean. Yep.
You write them back in, and then I'm going to go in and judge it and make it sound better. But those words, that has to be you, because otherwise when you get into an interview, you're not going to understand what you wrote because you had somebody else write everything for you.
See, that's what I like about having you talking to you, because not only are you the coach, a career coach, but you offer all these other services with it.
Yeah.
You're not just saying to be a career coach, okay, but there's a lot of things here, and we'll get to later on about your interview preparation. You're going over it with that with your candidate. You're going over the writing resume. So there's a lot to it when you're putting into it for a client.
Yeah, I mean, I have had people that were not happy about it, that I made them do it. But that's why I have an initial call with people, because I'm like, look, if you're looking for something that is someone's going to write everything for you, we're not going to work, because it doesn't work like that. And, because I've seen the HR end of it, and I've seen people come in for interviews and they have no idea what's on their resume.
Right.
And ultimately that looks bad for you, because ultimately my goal is that everybody who comes through my door, I want you hired. That's my goal. So if I'm not helping you get hired, then I'm doing a disservice for you.
Right. Because you're going to want the results. That's what you're
exactly. Ultimately, it's about the result. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to help you, make you not do work. This is your career. You get in what you put in. So, if you're not putting the work in and you're expecting somebody else to write this whole thing for you, that's what you're going to get out.
But what do you tell, and you've seen it on LinkedIn a lot,
Mm-hmm.
Like you said before, wow, you've put in 1,000 applications. Okay. You've done 64 in-person interviews, second interviews, third interviews. You still didn't get the job. Again, that's where something is wrong. There's a disconnect
Yeah.
somewhere. And the biggest question I had for you, and I'm sure you get answered all the time or asked, is the ATS systems we all know, the newer ones coming out, these newer things. The keywords has got to be one of the best significant things in that process, right?
Yes.
Because your format, when I was looking at different formats, I was like, wow, you have such a choice to choose from. But that's why I believe hiring a professional to do it for you will know, because is there different formats for different jobs, or that it's not like that?
It basically takes your resume and parses it into a different system. So it makes it very plain. It doesn't, so that beautiful like format that we see, oh, I want to use this template, that's going to not work out for you, because what happens with, there's columns, there's different fonts, all of these things cause errors.
Right.
And you think that it looks great, but then when it goes through the applicant tracking system, it shows up as nothing parses. Right. And I've seen it many, many times, like more than I can even count.
Right.
Where somebody's like, oh my God, my resume is great. Like, will you take a look at it? And I have a system that I run it through, and I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to have to throw this away immediately.
See,
there's nothing that's coming up.
No, I utilized a company called Duck and Out, and it was for video resume screening through COVID. It's a really great software. Duck and Out is. I love it. And what opened my eyes was when I put that job description in there, then I had to put in 10 keywords that I was looking for. So every day as a recruiter, when I'd open that up, I'd see, wow, okay, Tazeen, wow, 7 out of 10. She's going to be the one that I'm contacting. Then there was some 2 out of 10 or 1. But then I went back and I was like, you know what? Let me just look at the resumes. And I was like, oh, no wonder why. Those skills were there, but just I don't know. They were missing it. I was like, damn it.
It doesn't get parsed. That's what happens. Any resumes that have columns, text boxes, these are all problematic. You do not want to use any of that stuff. It won't parse. And a lot of people have that kind of stuff. Even just the date formatting, right? The date has to be formatted in a very specific way. It needs to have the word and then the year. And people have it numerical, and that also causes an error.
That's what I mean. There's a lot of things that people don't realize.
Yeah, there are a lot of nuances. And I think when you don't have somebody who is writing your resume for you or helping with this stuff, somebody who knows not just the front end, I also work for Indeed. So I not only just the front end, how you see the parse version, but also the HR end of it, because, there are a lot of things that happen between the first time you submit your resume and the date you get hired. You want somebody on your team that understands the full cycle hiring process, also understands what's happening in HR. Oh, HR didn't call me back after they interviewed me 3 times and they said they'll be in touch with me. Now it's been a month. Okay. Wow. Like they don't understand that on the back end, there are budgets to go through. There are, there's a hold on this job now because of, there's another position that's going to be coming in. How
do you prepare somebody for all that? Like when I hear you're talking, I see all these questions I've been through. I'm always like, everything you're saying, I'm like, oh my God, I remember saying that, because everybody's going through a job search. Even yourself, we've all experienced it. Listen, I don't take my job for granted. I tell anybody, 2 weeks from now, it can be gone. Just like looking on LinkedIn. Well, they announced layoffs today. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Exactly. A big company. I'm like, wow, it can just be taken to you like that. But when you're working with somebody, it's not just a resume, but that preparation has got to be big time. Like learning about the company. Now, do you help people? Do you have to tell them like step by step what they should be doing?
Oh yeah. I mean, there are people who kind of have an idea. There are people who say things that they should not be saying. There are people who don't do the research. And there was somebody who came in for electric car company who didn't really do. I'm like, why are you applying to this position? Your experience is not in tech.
That was one of your
technical cars. Why are you? I didn't really think of that. And I said, this is something they're going to ask. I need you to give me an answer. And I think, just asking it, and there are different tactics people use for interviewing too. There are those super direct
Right.
Interviewers that don't smile, they don't, you need to be able to understand how to respond to that.
To-
You need to be able to interview and not be shaken to the core by that, because sometimes it is very tough. And I'm that interviewer. I'm that straight face interviewer.
Yeah, you
Because
don't smile. You just want that answer.
yeah, like I'm like, okay, so it's a tactic that a lot of interviewers have used and time again. And there are different industries that people do use it, and finance is one of them,
Right.
where they just have this very straight face and they're like, okay. And you have to be able to like not be shaken by that and be able to go to the next question, be able to answer and be like, oh, did I do okay? Like, you can't second guess yourself. You know that what you brought to the table is
Right.
great and you were prepped in the right way. So it really doesn't matter who's in front of you or what they're saying, because you were prepped. You were ready to answer those questions that were being asked.
But do you feel, and when I take back what you said about, and it was one of your posts I liked about, read that job description. Like, because I get it all the time. I'm like, what are they applying for this for?
I know.
There's no qualifications. There might be some transferable skills, but I think that's another
Mhm.
way of doing something. And I'm sure you
Yeah.
come across that.
And if you have a
But
transferable skill, then you're going to say, oh, I applied to this position because I'm really looking to get into, like,
very
explain
good.
yourself, write a summary section that says something like that, because otherwise it's going to be looking like you're applying to everything.
And
How
I
do you
see
qualify?
that. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people that quick apply is one of the worst. I
I
get
hate
it.
it.
It's easy, but I believe you need to, if you're really looking for it, and this is just from talking to a lot of people and people like yourself that knows what you're talking about, is the reason behind it. If you're just sitting there quick apply and you're just waiting for that job to come,
Mhm.
then it's never going to happen.
Mhm.
It takes so many times that you're going to push that easy apply. Do the
Exactly.
homework. You got to do the work in order to find and learn about that company. And I can imagine you going through all this. It's not just, I mean, you talk about onboarding, employee relations, career counseling, resumes,
Hmm.
how you think one of your posts was something with body language, even the
Oh
way
my
you're,
God.
the
Yes.
way, I guess you must talk to them about that also.
Yeah. I mean, it's just even small things we don't realize that are making such a big difference. If somebody's slumped back in their chair, that body language is not great. If you are not excited to talk about your own experience, I don't want to hear it.
Right.
No, thank you. Like, you need to be excited to tell me, oh, this is what I've done. This is, okay. Then ultimately, even if I'm not interested, your excitement to it makes me want to be interested.
Right.
Put that up and down in your voice, like, talk, enunciate your words, let people understand what you're saying. And that's your best asset. Like, people who are applying to one job, let's say,
Right.
an analyst position, all those people have the same qualifications that you do. What is going to make you stand out is your personality. And that in an interview is something you have to show.
Well,
Try to relate.
how much can you transfer that towards LinkedIn? Like we talked about that before,
Mhm.
because the importance. I think we all mentioned about you got to keep up with the LinkedIn. You got to
Oh
keep up
yeah.
with that. I really believe. Listen, I love my profile. I go up and tweak it once in a while because I look at other people's, and it's not that I'm tweaking what I've done. It's between just that wording and just
Yeah. Of
what I can change it to where what they're looking
course.
for.
90% of jobs are now found through LinkedIn. So if you don't have a good LinkedIn, oh, I haven't touched my LinkedIn in, a year, you're doing a disservice to yourself.
Right.
You are not putting yourself at the forefront. Maybe you're not looking for a job, but when you are looking for a job, you need to have a slew of recruiters already in your inbox saying, hey, we saw your profile and would you be interested in? Oh, that position is closed, but we did
Right.
like your profile for this. You need to be ready, and it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you've done. You need to have a LinkedIn profile for that purpose, because that's what it's for, to
No,
get
that
you to that next role.
that makes total sense because I hear it all the time, but I say, listen, there's so many things. I know with AI and all that. Listen, AI to me is I've used it for a tool, but then
Mhm.
I always gear it towards myself because people that know me will be like, that's not friggin' Dave. That's not him.
That people know right away, because it's
Yeah,
very robotic sounding.
it is.
So you want to make sure, yes, if you want to use it for certain words, but now with AI and all of these things, ATS is also going to have a component to that where it runs your resume through how much was it written by AI. And if it comes up more than 50%, I'm
Right.
pretty sure you're not going to get hired for that.
They're not going to get it.
Obviously, as AI comes into the picture, HR is also evolving and gearing up for all these things. And there will be a tool that will be attached to ATS. Hey, how much of this resume was written by AI?
AI, and then they know. I figured that. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Sorry I'm late. Glad to see you both. He's ready. Mike, feel free to ask her any kind of questions about a resume or anything coaching for looking for employment. I know you're going to be looking for a job soon. So coaching, what I like about, you talked about the resume. Mm-hmm. The preparation for an interview is a big thing. What about learning about the company that a lot of people don't know?
Critical.
Would you use that? Would you try to gear? You hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, I have 4 resumes." All right. Do you need that many resumes? Do you gear it towards every job? I mean, I can imagine taking a resume and looking at it and say, okay, maybe I'll gear it towards this. Mm-hmm. I guess what you're looking for, it all comes down to, right? I mean,
well, David, there's a best practice on resume. If you look at positions for, let's say, for example, project management.
Right.
Project management within the same industry will have the same keywords. Maybe not exactly the same, but pretty similar. If you have a data analyst in finance,
right,
they will all have similar keywords. So it really goes by the title. So if you're going to, you're having one position that's for your finance jobs, okay, fine. One position for your project management jobs, okay, fine. But it really goes by the title and the industry. So if it's within the same industry and the titles are the same, you really don't need, 5 resumes for all of that. But, if you're trying to use your transferable skills to get into a different industry or get into a different area, then yes, I would say you need to have a couple different resumes for that.
That's what I figure. I'd be like, oh my God. And then you got to figure out another thing I wanted to touch bases on. And I always like to ask this question because I still believe they're relevant, is a cover letter. I don't know how you feel about that, but
you're going to hate what I have to say.
I know you're going to, I know, but I guess I just kind of like.
Are you a doctor?
No.
Then you don't need one. Period.
You don't think people read it that much or anything?
In my years in HR, I've read 0.
But can't you gear that towards, like you just said before, like you want to try to get yourself out there. Mm-hmm. But there again, I know what you're saying. It depends on how many people read it.
No one's reading it. I promise you that.
I know. I knew it. I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
Like I see the resume come in and I see the cover letter on top and I'm like,
right.
No one's reading it. But on your resume, you have a summary section and that's 2 to 3 lines. Tell me then what you want to say. You do not need a whole cover letter to tell me all, your life history. I don't care.
Right.
Use that summary section and use those 2 to 3 lines. If you're using, you're transferring and you want to do something else different, then that's your spot to tell me that. Because resumes have 4 sections that will parse. Summary, education, skills, and experience. Beyond that, certifications also will parse. But beyond those 4, nothing else is going to parse over. So it's really a waste for you to put it. If you want to talk about it when you get into talking to a person, great. But that's not really something we need on your resume. People are putting references available upon request. Obviously, they'll be available upon request. I'm going to request it from you. Like, you don't need to write it.
Well, no. I got you a perfect client here.
Oh, God.
This is my brother. And I think, you know his story a little bit, but I'm going to show you here. I'm going to pop up the question for you. Okay, my question is, with my criminal history and being incarcerated pretty much since 1997, I have no street work until now. But what do I put on my resume when I come home next year? That's a tough question.
Mm-hmm. Well, when your background check is run, it will come up anyways.
Right.
So it's better to get in front of it.
Right.
On your resume, because it's 1997, it's pretty far back there. And if you have, you get some experience now or whatever your experience that you have right now, it is 2023. So you're lucky that it's a bit in the past because we really are looking for 15 years worth of experience. And that's way past that 15-year mark.
Right.
But when you do get into an interview, I think that it's important to say that and be upfront and honest
Yep.
and say, this is what I was incarcerated for this. Ever since then, this is what I'm doing. This is what I've been doing. I've changed my life around.
Right.
And a lot of places it depends on state.
Right.
But a lot of applications don't ask for that history right up at the forefront because equal opportunity employment thinks that that's not fair.
And we didn't have that. You didn't have that as much back then versus what
exactly.
You do now.
So
the protections
you have
that
to
you have now.
See state by state guidelines. I obviously don't know what states have and whatnot. I know in New York it does. You can't ask that.
Right.
So it's important to say and be honest because it will come up in the background check.
I get a lot of people for second chances. I've seen it,
mm-hmm.
And I know, but at the same time, majority of them have been honest with me because they feel like they don't want to waste your time.
Of course.
And they'll tell you that you don't want to waste my time. And I've never turned anybody. I'm like, no, I'll listen,
of course.
And this is we all have processes, but I like how you said to get in front of that.
Yeah. Because eventually it will come out. If you are upfront and honest, they're going to say, hey, I like that guy's honesty. And, I liked his personality. Let's give him a try.
Right.
And they might ask you your story and they might say, can you tell me a little bit about it if you're comfortable with it, can you tell me about it? And at that point, it's up to you what you want to divulge and whatnot.
And that whatnot. On a resume, I wrote some things down here, showcase your skill. How do you add in there your accomplishments? Because everybody says always put your accomplishments, right? But when you're putting your job description, is it something on a separate that you should have on there or under the same job?
It won't parse if you have it separately. So if you have your history or your employment, so let's say, for example, I worked at, Urban Decay.
Right.
And then in my first bullet, I'll say, I rung up customers and blah, blah, blah. And was able to cut down the checkout time by 20%. Right. So that's an accomplishment. So anytime you can have accomplishment-based bullets, that's what you want to do. So there's a method. It's called the WHO method. What did you do? How did you do it? And what was the outcome?
One more time. Say that again. I love saying that.
It's the WHO method.
The WHO method.
Yeah. So what did you do?
Right.
How did you do it? And what was the outcome?
Okay.
So each bullet that you're writing will have that format in it. So you start out with the action verb and then continue on with that format. And that is what we call an accomplishment-based bullet. Okay. And you want to have, if you have number-based bullets where you have, like I said, 20% increase or decrease or whatever within this time frame, that really showcases, this is the impact that you made.
Right. Okay.
So that is kind of how you want to write your accomplishments rather than putting them in that, a separate section because it probably won't parse.
All right. That makes sense. And another good one, I had one of the people wanted me to ask you was, and this one I don't look at because I always look at since COVID, you're going to have some kind of mess up between these last 2 or 3 years or something. But when it comes to employment gaps, I mean, I hear all the time. I have young ladies saying, I've been a mom, my child went back to school now. Now I'm coming back to my career. I've stayed home taking care of a parent, because of something with COVID going on like that. Is that something that you really want to put on your resume as well? Specifically when you've got that gap so somebody doesn't have to ask you in your preparation? Because in that interview, I mean, I don't really come out and say, hey, what did you do for the last 4 years in between? Or I try to stay.
Yeah, but you're wondering that though.
Yeah, I am but I want to be careful because the way the laws and everything is I want to make sure my words are coming across because I'm like, all right, am I allowed to ask that? Especially when
there are different tricky ways of asking that question, and you and I can talk about that later. But what you want to do is gaps are not scrutinized as much as it used to be.
Correct.
Especially in that time period of COVID, we expect it. Fine. But if the gap is, a mom that stayed home for their kids, I'm in that boat, I would say, family leave.
Right.
Nobody needs to know the details of what you did. Family leave,
I like to
personal
have it
leave,
on there. You could just say, I like that family leave. Then at least
family
know in my
leave.
mind,
Yeah,
you know it.
family leave, personal leave of absence. Some people need a mental break.
Right.
You don't need to say needed a mental break.
I could
Personal leave of
imagine that.
absence. Easy.
Right.
I think in this type of situation, vague is better. I don't like to get into the details and the nitty gritty of what you were doing and how you were doing, and you had 3 kids. And the more information you give, the more things that can happen that are creating bias. We want to
Right.
stay away from any type of bias.
Correct. And I'll tell you what, and that's a good subject for another show, is a lot of people don't realize that you have bias in you.
Oh yeah.
After I did it, I was like, wow, I'm biased on some of the things. I mean,
Of
I was
course.
like,
It's a natural human process. Like you are, like if somebody said, "Oh, stay at home to have 3 kids." Oh, I only have 2 kids, so now I'm biased against someone with 3 kids.
with 3 kids.
Like, you don't know who is getting your resume and what their biases are. So
Right.
you want to leave those doors closed. Don't open yourself up for. So one thing that I've seen really recently, and this really gets under my skin,
Right.
I'm going to tell you, is people putting pictures on their resume.
I've seen that, and I don't know.
I
That
love
seems like
your picture.
overseas a lot.
Yeah, I love your picture. You're adorable, but like, get rid of it.
Right.
No. Because again, it goes back to that bias, right? You don't know. Maybe I hate people with red shirts. Oh, you're wearing a red shirt in this picture. Nope. Why open yourself up for a bias situation?
Right.
And bias is very difficult to prove either. So you can't say, oh, this person was biased and that's why I didn't get an interview. Prove it.
Yeah, trying
It's
to
impossible.
say. And there are all these things like this. This has got to be part of your job too when you're talking with candidates, right?
Mhm.
I mean, when you're coaching them, all the stuff it's like we're talking about.
Yeah.
These are the kind of things that you got to be really.
Yeah. I mean, we even talk about as tedious things as what to wear in my LinkedIn picture. How should I pose? How should I smile? I'm like, not like that. Like these are the things that we
I
discuss.
saw something on your posting, something even about an email, the
Mhm.
way some of the people's emails are, and that you should have. I'm like, wow, it gets down to looking at that. But yesterday when I did a post, I had somebody email saying I spelled veteran wrong, and I was like, so yeah, they messaged me, Dave. I was like, whoa, thank you. I had to go back.
I know, and here's the
tells
thing
you.
too, David. We ourselves as professionals, we even mess up. So it doesn't matter. Like it's helpful for us if somebody catches our mistake. Please let us know.
Yeah, my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh my god, I spelled veteran wrong, and I'm a veteran." And I'm like, "I spelled it wrong." And I'm looking through. I'm like, "Oh my god, now I got to go back through 4 or 5 different platforms." Oh my god.
Terrible.
But that just tells you the detail that some professionals on LinkedIn looked at. And I can imagine if somebody was like that, if I was looking for a job, what they're looking for on my LinkedIn profile.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
because if they see. Listen, I've seen some of them, and they need to use spell check. That's why I use a Grammarly. I don't care how good I am. I use
everybody should use Grammarly. Everyone. It doesn't matter how good you are of a writer. Use Grammarly.
I know you have to, because it just shows you different ways, and I learn from it. I've learned so much from it as I do it. How much of when you talk about LinkedIn optimization, when you say that, you say that word. What is it come down to compared to LinkedIn to your resume? Everything's got to line up, right? I mean, you want to really be able to, when you look at that candidate, you're talking to them, is that one of the things that you go and look at? It
needs to line up, but it doesn't need to be exactly the same.
Right.
So there are a couple of people who think that your resume needs to be put onto your LinkedIn. No. It needs to be a snapshot of you. Tell me, I don't know what this company is that you work for. Tell me a little line about this company and what you did there, your top 3 accomplishments.
Right.
That is kind of what we want to see on LinkedIn. And use that summary section. Talk about yourself. Tell me what drives you. You've been in this industry for so long and you're still there. Why? What is keeping you there? What's making you? Because ultimately, everybody who is getting interviewed for the same position you're applying for, they have the same experience as you do. It's your personality through LinkedIn that is going to make you stand out. And
you think being aggressive on LinkedIn helps to go after jobs? Or
aggressive how?
Like you hear all of a sudden people saying, well, I'll send a resume to a hiring manager, or through a message, or You know, do you want to go out and contact the company on LinkedIn? Do you want to say, hey, you know, I've
If you have a
applied?
common friend, sure.
Right.
But contacting the person directly,
It's kind of,
kind of aggressive. And
yeah,
and it just depends on your comfortability of it. Like as a recruiter, people would contact me. I would not respond because it's not up to me who to hire. It's up to the hiring manager, right? I
hiring
can
manager.
screen this candidate. I can say, oh, we should screen this person and see them, but it's up to them who they want and what they see. So reaching out to me is really not going to do anything. However, referrals, nothing like it. If
Nothing
you
like
have a friend who works for this company, what better way to have an existing
it.
employee refer you for a position, because then that puts you at the top of the pile.
That does make a
Oh,
lot of
this
sense.
person is referred. Okay, let's talk to him.
Makes sense. Mike says he's in trouble for bias because about tattoos. Oh boy, I'm in trouble. You know, and
You can wear long sleeves, Mike. Don't worry.
yeah, just put the long sleeves on. You're
Put
good.
those long sleeves on.
I still do because I have a couple from the military. I think we
Yeah.
all have, and I'm like, no, I don't wear a short sleeve or anything like that.
I
That's
mean, my
just
brother-in-law has a lot of tattoos, and he works in banking. He
right.
wears long sleeves.
But he's right. Bias. There's a
We
bunch
don't
of
know what people are biased with. There's
right.
no way that we would know. But why open yourself up to any biases?
Right. So
If
that's a
you
good way
think
to
that
think.
that's something that somebody will be biased about, then it's in your best interest to cover it up.
To cover it up. I did notice on your website, I liked it, and I'll put it up on here, is how you offer different packages of what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's commendable how you do that, because I like your website. It's easy to look at. It's straight to the point, and I can see how being a professional like that, how you have to be. Because if I was looking at someone like for yourself, I would be looking at your profile. I'd be like saying,
yeah, you want it as easy to read as possible, so people can
for that
quickly look at what they want. Okay, this is what I want to do. Let me message this person.
right
and
there.
Easy to access and see what's available, because you don't want any question marks. I hate ambiguity in like, oh, what are the services? What can you do? Like, I want everything to be up in the front, and then it's on you if you want to contact. If you need help, come see me. I'm happy to help you.
I love it. And I had one more question for you. I want to back up because more of the days I see this is the transferable skills that we talk about. Mm-hmm. Because leadership, when we talk about leadership all the time, listen, if you're a leader, you're a leader. Like you said before, project management, that could be project management. I didn't learn until I started doing all this. Wow. How do you differentiate yourself from project management? Because there's 10,000 things that you can do. But how do you sell as a candidate when you're talking to somebody? What I like how you said about reading the job description, and then what I see the resumes, but I'm the type of, I'll look for transferable skills. Mm-hmm. Not everybody does that.
No.
They're going to be like, oh no, wait a minute here. They've worked in retail. They've worked over here.
Yeah, this person doesn't belong.
Right. But they don't really look into it as much to see, wow, look at the background, how many years, the work history. Mm-hmm. They've had 3 jobs in 25 years. And that tells you right there, they go to work. That's one thing, and they're not job.
They're reliable.
Right. And there's a lot of different skills that you can look at. But how do you stand out? How would you work with somebody on that part to say, because I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I think it is possible to get into it, but I think it's just, you got to sell yourself somehow.
Well, when you are looking for those, okay, I want to change gears and I want to do this instead, it really comes down to reading that job description, because that is ultimately what's going to qualify you in ATS. It has nothing to do, even before you get to a person, it's the applicant tracking system.
About that. You're right.
You have to get through the applicant tracking system. So I always tell people, print out that job description,
right?
Highlight the words that are coming up over and over again, and then use those words if they apply to you in your experience, in your description, because that's ultimately what's going to qualify you for those roles, because those are the key words right there.
And that makes it, I like that. Yeah, because it's just like, how do you go about that besides in your interview? That would be easy if you get the interview.
Yeah.
But you got to try to sell yourself before that.
Yeah, you can get into those transferable skills, but it really will come down to you sitting there tediously highlighting those words and then seeing, hey, can I relate these words to my experience? And if the answer is yes, I can relate, there are 10 words on here, I can relate 6 to them, I would say you're in good shape then.
Right.
That's how
Okay.
those transferable skills, it's your job to show how you qualify, not mine. I'm not
Right.
going to sit through and look through, oh, I can use this person for this. Yes, for some specialized roles, sure. But if you are not getting any hits and you are trying to make that move and trying to make that switch into something that's slightly different, then
Right.
that's the only way to do it, to be able to write those transferable skills and use them from the job description, put them into your work.
From there, and that makes sense. I want to thank you so much. I mean, this is definitely going to be back for part 2. I can guarantee.
Of course,
because I got so much, and I think that you'll be to contribute to the show and your expertise. If you had to, you see it on LinkedIn, and you know what it's like. I like when I talk to you about you saying with HR that you enjoyed helping people find that job.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be rewarding, because knowing that if you
yeah.
take on as a career coach, and wow, I'd be like saying, man, she got me. She was hard, just like a physical therapist. Oh my God, they were tough. They're not the nicest ones, because I've had surgeries, and it's like, you were mean,
yeah,
but you got the job done.
But the results were there.
The results, and I can tell that you care a lot about people and what you do. You see the layoffs around now, the holiday season, and it's got to break your heart, I'm sure, when you see it. Yeah. I see it. I'm like, of all the time,
terrible.
What do you tell people coming up in the new year to how to step out of your comfort zone? If it's not working, definitely I want to tell them, and I'm going to be, reach out to yourself and see what, have that call with you. Yeah. But what is the best kind of advice you can tell somebody going into 2024?
I would say be patient. You are not alone. Right. Everybody is having problems.
Right.
There are a lot of layoffs, and there are a lot of people in different industries, highly specialized people who are laid off. So it really doesn't have to do with, oh, my skill set is not this, and this is why I'm laid off. No, you are not the problem.
Right.
You are not the problem. Just have some patience. Work on yourself. If there's a class you can take, if there is some skills you can accomplish, even taking virtual classes that will help build some skill set while you're not working, I would say do that. And then in the new year, we expect, that it will be better, as, David and I, we were talking that as the market starts to turn and it starts to get a little bit better, it already has.
Right.
We expect probably January, February to get much better in terms of jobs, and we just have to be a little patient. And it's hard to have that, and it's easy for me to say, but you yourself will see the movement in the market. And as there are a lot of positions you might have applied for and you haven't heard anything back. No news is good news. So if you haven't gotten a rejection, then that you're still in the running. And it just might be that they're waiting for that new year. They're waiting for new budgets to come out. Definitely. And there's going to be a hiring frenzy. So just a little patience and just, that persistence. And I think you'll get there.
You'll get there. All right. Thank you so much, Tazeen. Hey, what was your website? We're going to put that on.
It's just my name, TazeenRaza.com.
Well, you can't ask anything easier than that, right? So I want to thank you so much, and I'm going to talk to you right after this video. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll be back on Wednesday. Take care, Tazeen. Talk to you soon.